So I hope you've enjoyed this little mini series on loving well, and I believe this passage from Romans 12 verse 9 onwards speaks to that really well when it talks about love must be sincere, agape, a pre-decision to love, to value the other person, to give them intrinsic worth or recognize their intrinsic worth, or deem value on people, and to pay the price for that. The whole thing about being devoted to one another, and the way that we do that by nurturing and encouraging like a parent, but by doing it as equals. I think that's fantastic, and I trust that's able to happen in your house group as you spur one another on to good works and disciple one another. Then that whole thing about brotherly love and treating each other well, and having each other's backs, but recognizing that we're treating each other as equals. Then we talked about the share with one another in need, share with the God's people in need, and that idea of how we can partner with each other, koinonia, that fellowship with each other, and fellowship with those in need, not just people who are abundantly well off, but we're fellowshipping, we're teaming, we're working with people who aren't on our economic level or a social level or whatever. We're working with them in order to raise people up, to give them a leg up, to just to bless people. And then today, practice hospitality, and this idea that hospitality is really oriented towards the stranger. It's not really having my friends around, although that's nice to do. It's love of the stranger, love of the one who's different. And I talked about the different silos that we have. I mean, I didn't use that word, but the different silos we have in terms of social xenophobia, where we're just frightened of strangers, which, in some cases we need to be wary and draw boundaries, and we need to make sure that we're safe, but we can breed a culture of fear, can't we, of strangers, and pray for parents, but also, let's look at ourselves. How frightened are we of the stranger in the room? How can we welcome them, love them? And the political stuff as well, the different divisions that there are in our society now. I used a few examples really from history, but it would be better to think about some of the current ones in terms of the Me Too movement, or the Not All Men thing, whether it's Black Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter, whether it's Brexit in or out, still is an issue, isn't it? Whether we think the government have done really well with this pandemic, or whether we think they've been an abject failure who've just landed lucky with the vaccinations. It's whatever side we're on, in a way, we need to be loving the stranger, and we can only do that by practicing hospitality, by meeting, by setting a culture where we can be open and honest, where we can recognize the value in the other person, where we can listen and hear their stories. And I just think it would be great if, maybe as a group or maybe as individuals, that we can work out ways that we can do that across the church, because there's a lot of strangers in church at the moment, folk who've joined in the last year who none of us have met. There's people who we meet, just come across. How can we love the stranger in a better way, and how can we somehow, as we reconnect with our friends and reconnect with our wider circle, how can we include those who are just outside of that, and make them part of our body as we love well, part of the body of the church as we love well. So hopefully that's helpful. Just a bit of a challenge, bit of a stimulus to widen our social network, to maybe not just make every stranger a friend, but maybe just to bless strangers so that we can send them on their way, having shown them something of Jesus. Anyway, have a great time as you talk about this stuff, and I think it could be really helpful as we learn to be a church that loves well. Just one thing, in the middle of that passage, there is all this spiritual exhortation, isn't there? There's the spiritual exhortation where it says, keep your spiritual fervour serving the Lord, never be lacking in zeal, be joyful, be patient, be faithful in prayer. And all of this comes out of a really hot spiritual temperature, and so I'd encourage you to raise the spiritual temperature in your group as you pray for each other too. Okay, have a good time. See you in a bit. Bye bye.